Thank you very much. I'd like to extend my regards and compliments to Professor Lukasiewicz and to all students from the Comparative Civil Law Circle of Study and the person of Ms. Batch, all these of University of Rzeszów on Poland. It is a fantastic conference, fantastic thematic, fantastic organization. Thank you very much once more. And naturally, I'd like to extend my regards also to every participant from the several countries who attend Poland, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, El Salvador, to say some. Well, as Ms. Batch announced before, we are going to talk about fundamental rights, AI, and subjective rights, okay? And it's quite common for me to begin a lecture or a class presenting to you a concept, or at least some concept, so we can understand a little bit better what we are dealing with, okay? And the first concept that I'd like to share with you, that will be only some thoughts, the time is quite short to be so much extensive on these matters, and these matters will demand so much more time. But the first concept that I'd like to share with you is the concept of the fundamental rights itself. Well, what is a fundamental right? We can define fundamental rights as a subjective right which can be organized, divided, and guarantees and declaratory rights, okay? The fundamental rights are predicted on a constitutional level, and they were born in a vertical relation between state and society to protect society from state. But nowadays, fundamental rights are being applied on a horizontal relations from the people of the society, okay? All these with the purpose to guarantee human dignity, okay? This is the basic concept of fundamental rights, and there is a little part that we are going to develop from now. The part that enunciates that fundamental rights are subjective rights. What is a subjective right? Well, we can understand subjective right as an abstractive right, which as a glue based on someone. This is a shallow explanation, at least, of subjective right. But this abstract right only can paste on someone who has the right to have rights. Now we're going on the second thematic that we are facing, the subjective of right. Who is subjective of right? Well, my dear friends, I studied these matters about a decade or so since my master's, and my master was on environmental law, and there is a kind of similarities between environmental law and these matters on environmental law and this thematic on AI. Who can be a subjective of right? Well, human beings naturally are subjective of rights. There is no doubt about it. But in my research, can be nature, animals, vegetables, you can name it. Can they be a subjective of rights? Well, I guess we must face the concept of the law, the science of law, to understand why I think, at least, they cannot be. The very purpose of the science of law is to ensure, the very purpose of the science of law is to establish human behavior. It means to establish a behavior to human beings. Okay, this is quite important because if that particular human being does not obey that certain behavior that is expected, this human being will suffer some kind of punishment or something like that. Okay, with this in mind, we can now understand that it doesn't matter if a law protects nature or an animal or a vegetable or you name it once more, but this protection, this kind of protection does not make an animal, vegetable or nature a subjective of right. It predicts a certain behavior for the human being. Well, why I'm saying these and what's the relation between these matters and AI? Let's go on the following matters. What is AI? Well, how can we define, how can we conceptualize AI? From now, I'm talking on 2021, from now, AI is a programming made, human-made, directly or indirectly by persons, humans' hands. Okay? This is quite important for us to understand all the context, all the idea that I'm trying to bring to you. If if we are saying that this is AI, it is a human programming, non-sentient beings, can we say these AI are subjective of rights? It is possible to say so, to affirm such a thing. I believe, at least in the current state of technology evolution, it isn't possible. Unfortunately or fortunately, it isn't possible. Why is so? Well, to establish that someone is a subjective of rights, we must face two characteristics from that person per se. Which ones? Rationality and free will of that singular species. And currently, the singular species which present rationality and free will, it means the singular species who can be applied with a behavior imposed by the law is human species. Okay. Now you may ask, why does Thiago are talking such things like that? Why this mumbo jumbo, sci-fi mumbo jumbo from Matrix, iRobot, Terminator? Well, every kind of sci-fi movie that are available. My dear friends, it's kind of on the table right now, this particular matters, because when we understand AI as a programming, non-sentient programming, we can divide AI as in two different groups. The first group, AI that came from a deep learning, a kind of self-learning, and AI which are kind of a fake AI with a if and else programming language. Okay, these two kinds of AI that is available. I'm being kind of shallow right now, but we can divide AI on these two very groups. Okay, and any one of those two groups, AI present any sign of sentience beings. And for that reason, we cannot, at least now, say that AI can be subjective of right. And what is the consequences over that? Well, the main consequence is, I guess, liability from AI and the programmer of AI and the business that use that AI. Well, if I say a particular AI is a subjective of right, that AI will respond on that matters. Okay, if it is a subjective of right, it can answer all the liabilities that are caused by it. But if I understand AI as a tool, as a hammer, we cannot establish a liability on the hammer, but on the hand of the one which are using this tool, this particular tool. Well, once more, is this sci-fi? No, we cannot understand this as sci-fi. This is happening right now. Since 2016, I'm going to use the main example that I can understand. Since 2016, the bot named Sophia, which are born at South Korea and Saudi Arabia, if I'm not wrong, okay? This bot, Sophia, on 2017, October 2017, if I'm not wrong, was awarded with a citizenship from Saudi Arabia. And naturally, with this citizenship, we can argue if this bot, this particular bot, could be interpreted as a subjective of rights for liability purpose, civil liability, criminal liability, all the purpose. Well, I know I'm not naive to realize that it is a political statement from Saudi Arabia, but it has a legal consequences that I'd like to share with you with this kind of thoughts, okay? Who is responsible? The AI or the one who is behind AI, who will profit with this AI? At least in my opinion, so far, AI cannot be responsible for anything. The organization will profit with this AI. The engineering team who developed this kind of AI, it must be responsible for any kind of liability. Well, my dear friends, I will not prolong this any further, but this is some thoughts that I'd like to share with you with these matters. I guess it will be a something to go deeper on a very close future. Thank you very much for your time. Obrigado a todos. Gracias. See you. If you have any doubts, please let me know.